It is time to test out the 250 Rally. It's pretty much a great bike, but let's go for a little bit of a ride. So, start up is pretty easy. I got the phone for the navigation, turn the key, it's in neutral. You hear that fuel injection starting, which is one of the key benefits of having a little dual sport like this. And you just hit the start. Starts right up. This one does have a lithium battery as well, so it's even lighter. You know, it's a heavy 250, but I really like how flexible it is. I usually let it warm up a bit. The way you sit on it, by the way, it's I'm not really used to having my arms at this angle. If they feel like an attack position for dirt riding, but I'm not really a dirt rider, so I always find it a little bit strange. And of course, when you have something like this, you can ride over the grass. You'll be shifting a lot with this bike. With 11 inches of travel, this bike is a little bit hard to flat foot. You would have to be over 6 feet tall in order to flat foot it. But around town, it almost feels, hey, these guys are painting. Look at that. Around town, it just feels so solid. From light to light, you can pretty much twist the wrist all the way and it feels like you're racing, but you're going pretty darn slow. Look at this guy. Is this guy turning left from the right lane? You know, the motor is really a gem. And the transmission is just so easy to ride. No wonder new riders are getting into this bike. It's just effortless to ride. But don't expect to get on the 250 and 300 and expect to get this crazy speed, because it's not a fast bike. It's just a fun bike. And riding it around, it could be a great commuter if you're into commuting on this, but for me, I prefer different styles of bikes for commuting, especially around the DC area. Like, you need a little bit more horsepower, especially to get on the highway. When you have something this small, psychologically, cars want to like go through you because they can see the road up ahead. That's also one of the downsides of riding a small scooter, is that they just want to go over. Here's the thing too, like there's a little corner here. It's not much of a corner, but because of the 21-inch front wheel and 18 rear, I've never really gotten a hang of cornering on a 21-inch front wheel. I just don't like it. You know, like you approach these lights and stuff and you take off, give it full gas, and you're really within the speed limit, which is crazy. And you know, in this bike, I don't feel like I'm sitting on top of it. There are bikes, when you sit on them, it feels like you're on top of the bike, really, and it feels like the bike is just so far down. But this one, you kind of sit inside. I think also the beauty of these little 250s is that they're great in-town bike. Especially, everybody thinks that DC area is like flush with cash, but not for the roads. So roads tend to be very much destroyed. Like this road in particular, I wanted to come through here because they've been working on this road for a while. Look at the bike. Normally on a scooter or whatever, this bumpiness of the road kind of sends you flying and you hit things, and it just kind of shocks you. Like, this thing is so smooth. They're working on it. Hey, look at these guys. You know what? I think I'm going to turn left here too. Every single road on a major city that's beat up feels like it's smooth on a bike like this. Yeah, going around these little residentials, like, even if you hit like one of those speed bumps, it won't feel like anything. Like the fact that I can ride this bike off-road And there are off-road areas in the DC area that I plan on riding, but they're completely illegal. You would have to do gangster style, you know, get in, get out. And hey, foam. I'm impressed with all sorts of crap like foam. You get in, get out, and that is the beauty. That's one of the reasons thanks buddy, that's one of the reasons I wanted a street legal dual sport, is because you can pretty much ride to a trail nearby on the road. You don't have to trailer it, and then you just ride out. Back in the day, I used to ride my XR650R dual sport into the trails, rip it up, and this was at the time like we were doing a lot of illegal riding, and cops started to, hey, there's a cop right there, and cops started to arrest people, not arrest but confiscate bikes, and they would wait in the parking lot when you trailered it. So after that, I was like, oh man, I'm going to just get a dual sport, ride to the trail, and ride out. I don't have to get a trailer. I do have to admit, I haven't really done any long rides on this bike, because there is a downside. If you have something like this, speed limit is definitely low on this, so to get out to West Virginia is quite a production on something like this. I prefer bikes that have a little bit more speed, you know, like a Tenere 700. It's kind of perfect for me, with the exception of having a chain drive. I prefer like a shaft. But I like the idea of going out to like West Virginia in a day. I don't think I'm capable of doing that here. I could probably do it, but it's not as comfortable of a bike to ride as a big ADV. So you have the dexterity of having a bike like this that's really solid as a dual sport for doing trails, but you have to keep in mind that getting to the trails takes a whole lot longer. I mean, I'm going 39 miles an hour. I normally never go the speed limit. Even the range of this bike is better than I thought. 150, 160 miles. Actually, right now I'm at 144 miles and I have 2 bars left. This is a 2.7 gallon gas tank. But you do get 80, 90 miles to the gallon. And imagine this. You go out to Utah to ride some of the trails, and you just ride the entire time. 140 miles is a lot off-road. You don't need to get gas. You can just simply keep going. And that's it. I got to 35 miles an hour, and it feels like it's a fast bike, but you're still within the speed limit. When I'm riding this bike, sorry, this thing is a little distracting, isn't it? When I'm riding this bike, I don't really feel like I want to like go around corners fast. It's just not that type of bike. And even the corners that I would take on the Super Tenere and whatever, they felt like corners. But on this bike, because it's so slow, they don't feel like corners, because the bike itself doesn't seem to go fast enough to really go around corners. But you don't get this bike to go around corners. That's not what it was meant for. I think it's just nice to slow down once in a while on a motorcycle like this and really look around. I never really got into that until I got a scooter, and then I realized how enjoyable it was to really slow down and look around. There's the sport of riding, and then there's just like touring and just looking. I like that a lot, so it's become my thing now. Another thing that you should note is that when you get something like this, the maintenance is a lot cheaper. Now, I believe that the motor uses these shim over bucket or whatever type of valves, which I don't like too much. But the general maintenance of these small underpowered 250s is that chains last a very long time, tires last a long time, The only thing you have to do more often is the oil changes because of the small displacement of the engine. The one thing I don't love about the wheels, other than the sizes are fine because it's mostly a dual sport. I don't like that it's got tubes. I know. Tubes are generally in off-road vehicles. But get this, my mountain bike does not have tubes inside. Most modern sport bikes, most modern mountain bikes do not have tubes anymore. And quite frankly, when I have to change these tires, I'm just going to convert them into tubeless. This is the worst part of this bike. We're about to hit the Capital Beltway for a short distance. This is why I wouldn't really travel too much on this bike, because the bikes I get generally have to be a bit better on the highway. So this is the Capital Beltway. It's a large artery here in the Washington DC area. It loops around the Capitol, goes through Virginia, Maryland, DC, and it's very high speed, and I want to see how this bike behaves. On the highway, I'm not very impressed with a 250. You know, even my Ninja 250 was better on the highway. But here we go, 58 miles an hour. It's shaking quite a bit. This is when you start to feel the vibration. I'm at 58 miles an hour. I'm going to move it to this lane. And you feel vibration from the handlebars and the foot pegs, but not horribly. When you ride the XR650R, that's when you really get bombarded with vibration. But of course the XR650R is a whole lot smoother than a KTM. But at 60 something miles an hour, this bike just does not feel like it's a bike you should be taking on the highway. I don't enjoy this bike at all in this type of environment. And I'm at 170 miles on this tank, and I have 1 bar left. And that's that. Took 2 gallons. 187.5 divided by 2.068. 90 miles to the gallon. 90.66. 90 miles to the gallon. That is really incredible. 188, and I had 0.7 gallons left. You know, when you live in a police state like this, it's nice to have a bike that feels fast, but yet it's slow. That way you don't get any speeding tickets. I think one of the issues with this bike in city riding, I love the visibility. I love the dexterity that it has. And I also love that it's a slow bike. And when you have a slow bike like this, it's a lot easier to kind of live with because you don't have to put up with a lot of things. Like getting speeding tickets. And around here, there's quite a few speed cameras. So you always have to kind of consider that when you are riding in the city. But also another big issue with this bike is the brakes. I think if you use it casually and off-roading, you'll never encounter the issue of having adequate brakes. You know, it is nice to have sport bike type of brakes when you ride a motorcycle. This guy's stopping. And sport bike brakes is like you touch it with one finger and you're pretty much braking extremely well. But this bike, it does not have that. It brakes fine, but the problem is it dives in quite a bit in the front. And this is the non-ABS model, so if you're really interested in getting the top of the line, you want to get the ABS version of this if you're going to do commuting. City riding in this area is this. It's like looking around for a passenger, for a tourist, stopping, making sure that you don't run anybody over. Look, that guy's camping. And having good brakes just to avoid tourists is good. So much off the market for this bike as well. And the best thing, it's kind of like the 50cc scooter craze. You can get a bike like this, and essentially, if you are into like modding things, you can mod this bike very cheaply. Now imagine you get a car, you get a sport bike. The higher these CCs, the more things cost. So things for this bike are inexpensive. I remember in Europe, the thing was getting 50cc scooters, and a lot of it was because of the licensing restrictions. And they would mod the hell out of 50cc's, and they would do all sorts of stuff to them. They would make them into rockets, like 70-mile-an-hour rockets. That was the goal. When you're riding around Washington, D.C. or any major city, the roads aren't perfect. That's why I like the adventure bikes. When you have an adventure bike, you have a little bit more suspension to deal with all of this stuff on the road. And this bike, any pothole, it's as if there's nothing there because it's got 11 inches of suspension. Also, one of the things you will appreciate about riding in traffic and commuting on this bike is that it's nice to be able to lug it a little bit. You can't really lug it, but riding slow is important. I think that's why scooters make better city commuters. But often in this area, you'll have bumper-to-bumper traffic. You know, most likely than not, you'll have crazy traffic all the time. Look at my lights. You see that? That's my high beam right there. That's cool. Yeah, it doesn't sound good inside this tunnel though. It sounds really crappy actually. Yeah, we are inside Washington, D.C. It doesn't look like it's what people would think is Washington, D.C. But yeah, this is it. This, of course, is Rock Creek. And Rock Creek is known as the wealthy part, northwest. Road closed. No entry. Authorized personnel only. I'm gonna try and exit. You see that? The road is just so rough here. But on this bike, it kind of soaks it up very well. We're exiting Rock Creek Park. If you look at the houses, like they might not look like much, but these houses are not cheap. I guess you pay to live in the city, surrounded by woods. Who knew? This is Northwest DC. Look at these speed bumps. Nothing to it. Yeah, all of these are over $1 million. Look at that old truck over there. Over $1 million. Doesn't look like it's $1 million. I mean, you can buy one of these like, I don't know where, but for like 200,000 maybe. It's crazy. You know what? I'm gonna go this way. Look at that. It's a truck exactly like mine, in better shape. Riding his bicycle on 29. It's probably an electric bike. We're about to check it out. I've actually ridden on the road for a little bit, but not in this section. I'll just hop on the sidewalk. Let's check it out. Let's check it out. Come on, I want to see this guy. I bet it's an e-bike. Where is it? Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. Why are people slowing the hell down? Oh, come on. Look at him. He looks so goofy. Those are boss moves, though. I mean, I'm proud of him. Look at him. Yeah, it's an e-bike. About this bike is that if you commute day in and day out, and you have like a 1 hour commute, and for me, sometimes that 1 hour becomes 2 hours because of traffic. It's not that comfortable of a bike. That's one of the beauties of having maybe a bigger bike like the Super Tenere. It's comfortable. You get on it, you sit on it, it's like, it feels so good. This bike only feels good when you sit on it for the first 20 minutes. Afterwards, your sit bones start to wear a little bit. I'm kind of stuck here. The cops won't bother me.